Hi friends, are you ready to start the next few chapters of Front Desk? When we left off, Mia had found out that she did not win the hotel contest. She also did find out though that her writing assignment, she did a really fantastic job and her teachers were so proud of her that they gave her a Pizza Hut coupon. So Mia, her mom, and Lupe went to Pizza Hut and ate at the restaurant. That was pretty exciting for her. All right, are you ready? The next few chapters of Front Desk. Chapter 61. The kind people at Pizza Hut let me keep my coupon as a souvenir. Carefully, I taped it up next to the front desk so that I could look at it every day while I worked. I wish I could tell my cousin Shin about it. The whole time Lupe was talking about her cousins in Mexico, I was thinking about Shin. There was this restaurant that Shin and I would always walk by on our way to school. It was a fancy Western restaurant, the only one in town, and naturally it was way too expensive. Every time we walked by it, Shin and I would talk about how I'd like to go in there one day when we grow up and order whatever we want. If Shin knew that today I had gone to Pizza Hut, and for free too, he'd be so proud of me. I smiled at that thought. I pulled out a piece of paper and started writing him a letter. If my mom didn't want to tell his mom anything about her, fine, but I just had to tell Shin. It'd been a while since we last wrote. The last letter was before we started working for Mr. Yao. I wrote quickly, scribbling away about Lupe and Hank and Mr. Yao. I wrote about the car theft and the crazy security guard and freeing Uncle Zhang. I wrote about school and Jason, who wasn't quite so bad anymore, even though he still had my pencil. I told him about the essay contest and how I didn't win, but that Lupe and I were going to figure out another way to get off the roller coaster together. Finally, I told him about Mrs. Douglas and my writing, how it had gone from 12 exclamation marks bad to 4 exclamation marks good. I even drew a picture of Pizza Hut coupon so he could see for himself. In my neatest handwriting, I copied down all the words on the coupon, including the little expiration date at the bottom so he would know exactly what it looked like. I was nearly done when the mailman came. "Can you just wait just 1 second?" I begged the mailman. "I want to mail this letter to my cousin in China, and I just need to get the address from my parents. It'll just take a second." "Did you say China?" he asked. He poked around in his big sack of letters and produced an envelope. "Looks like you just got something from there today." I peered at the letter in his hands. I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw the addressee. It was from Shin. "Thank you so much," I told the mailman. I was so excited I forgot all about mailing my own letter to Shin, and I tore open his letter to me. The mailman chuckled as he left. It was a very long letter, 5 pages long to be exact. It was extremely detailed, and Shin even separated into sections. There was a section on school, a section on the neighborhood, and a section on our family. Typical him, he was always super organized. I raced through the letter, gulping it down as quickly as I could. I giggled at Shin's description of his new teacher, Mr. Wang, and how he couldn't sneeze without farting at the same time. He told me all about the new kids in his school, many of whom were from the outskirts of the city. The entire neighborhood was changing. All throughout the city, people were starting to buy up property. The government was tearing down the old brick buildings to make room for new high-rises. When I got to the section on family, though, my eyes did a double take. We recently moved to an apartment by the river because it's bigger. After you guys left, my dad was made head of the department at his job. Long story short, the job came with a much bigger apartment. I no longer had to share it with my parents. Now I have my own room. Oh, and we also got a car. Nothing like what you guys have in America, I'm sure, but it's pretty great. Last weekend we went to Beijing and walked around the Great Wall. We had lunch at the brand new Peking Duck restaurant. It was really fancy. Do they have Peking Duck in America? Over and over I read the words, new apartment, own room, car. I looked at my own letter on the table in my handwriting, which a minute ago looked neat and now looked puny. Slowly I reread my words, how I'd gone on and on about the poor roller coaster and my pencil, my excitement of finally going to an American restaurant, how my stomach growled when I made myself put the pizza back so I could save some for my dad. The more I read, the more my fingers stiffened. Suddenly, I didn't feel like sending my letter anymore. With my hands heavy as rocks, I took my letter and Shin's letter and walked over to my closet. I stuffed them both in the way back together with my C- story and the rejection letter from the essay contest. Was it true? Was Shin rich now? The wild thought bounced around in my head as I tossed and turned. My lips formed around the word rich. Rich. It was like a passcode to a different galaxy, and now Shin was part of the galaxy and I wasn't. Could it be that while our life had gotten so hard, his life had gotten so much easier? The thought was so painful to bear, I couldn't stand it. I rushed to lick my wounds. Shin may have his own room now, but I was pretty sure he still didn't have a bathroom with a shower. He still had to go to the neighborhood bathhouse, and his dad may have gotten a good job, but they'd still never flown in an airplane and never stayed in a hotel before. With every never, I felt my panic subside. Later, when I could finally breathe again, guilt cut me like a harsh fluorescent front office lights. How could I feel this way about my own cousin? He was family. If he was doing well, I should be happy for him. I should be proud of him, because after all, if his family was rich now, didn't that mean... I sat up in bed. Mom! Chapter 62. My parents thought it was a joke. You want your aunt to buy the Calvista? They burst out laughing. Why not? I asked. I showed them Shin's letter, the part about how everyone in the city was starting to buy up property. They're not going to buy a motel, my dad said. Fine, they don't have to buy it. They can lend us the money. We can't buy it, we can buy it, and we could run it with Lupe and her family, I said. They don't have that kind of money, my dad said, and if they did, they wouldn't be in China. Well, it doesn't hurt to ask, I said. No way, my mom screwed up her face. I'm not going to ask my sister for money. Sometimes when my parents got like this, I really wanted to spray them with all-purpose cleaner. Don't you guys want to get off the roller coaster? I asked. Mr. Yao wants to sell the motel. I heard him on the phone. He's desperate. Aunt Julie has money now. We could buy the motel. Don't you see this huge opportunity this is? No, my mom didn't see. I see your heads in the clouds, is what I see, my mom said flatly. Hank found me later that afternoon, sitting in the back of the stairs. Why so blue? He asked, taking a seat. I shrugged. You still thinking about your lucky pennies? I shook my head. I wasn't thinking about those lucky pennies. I was thinking about this one, the humongous penny staring us in the face. It was called family, and my parents refused to pick it up. When I told Hank, he got up, patted my head, and said, "Don't worry, leave it to me." He walked up to where my parents' maid cart was, and I followed him. My parents were in room 13 cleaning. Hank walked in and sat down on the bed. You know, it's a funny thing, pride, Hank said to my parents. It stopped me many times in my life. Hank glanced at me and added, and I'm not just talking about my reference letter. My mom put her broom down and wiped her sweat off her forehead. She sat down on the bed next to Hank. Hank took a deep breath and gazed outside into the general direction of the pool. I'm talking about when I was young, he sighed. When I was 6, I wanted to be a swimmer. I just loved watching swimming on TV. There wasn't a pool in my neighborhood, so I'd have to walk 5 miles to the Y over in the next town to go swimming. And I got pretty good. In high school, I tried out for the swim team, and you know what? I made it too. I made it on the team. I smiled. So then what happened? I asked. Hank grimaced. He told us about the other kids on the team and how they kept making fun of him. They kept saying stuff like, the basketball court's that way, and why you're putting on sunscreen? You don't need sunscreen. Stuff like that. He shook his head. I reached over and put my hand over his. I thought I would show them in the water, show them how fast I was. That'll shut them up. But the day of the big meet came, and guess what? What? I asked. I was dead last. I wasn't even close. So you know what I did? What? I quit. I just walked out and I never came back, he said. Good for you, my mom said. You're better off without them. See, that's what I used to think. But now you know what I think? I think if it were Mia, she wouldn't have quit. She wouldn't have let those punks take away her dream. She would have worked hard and gotten better. So what if you lose the first race? You get back on there and you keep swimming. And you know something? She would have been right. I thought back to all the times Hank walked by the pool, how he always stopped and stared at it, his mind a million miles away. Hank turned back to my parents. The point I'm trying to make is that you can't let a useless thing like pride get in the way of your dreams, Hank said. That's what I realized this year. Hank pointed at me. Now you've got a very special little girl here. You owe it to her to swallow your pride, he said. I've been around long enough to know that there aren't many chances in life for our lot to change our luck. And this is it. You're staring at it. Yao's dying to sell this motel. But it's not that simple. I've been lying to my sisters on how great our life is here, my mom confessed. So tell them the truth. No skin off your back, Hank said. My mom looked hesitantly at my dad. Hank's got a point, my dad said. Please, Mom, I added. My mother peered into my eyes. Hesitation melted into resolve. Slowly, she stretched out her hand. Give me the phone, my mom said. We all crowded around my mother as she picked up the phone in the room and dialed international for my aunt, a number she knew by heart, yet never used. My father looked at his watch. What time is it over there, he wondered. Probably 9, 10 in the morning. We waited and waited while it rang. Finally, on the 5th ring, my aunt picked up. Julie, my mom said in her rapid-fire Chinese, it's Ying. My mother's face lit up when she heard Julie's voice. I guess all the lies in the world couldn't put two sisters apart. We're doing great, my mom said. Everything's fine. Just terrific. Uh-oh, I could feel her Macy's voice coming on. Listen, the reason I called is I have an opportunity for you, my mom said. My mom glanced hesitantly at my dad, who nodded. Go on. How would you like to invest in some American property? A pause. Yeah, I said American property, my mother repeated. Not just any property, a motel. See, the owner of our motel, Mr. Yao, is selling his motel. And I just thought... I could hear my aunt's animated voice on the other line, but I couldn't make out what she was saying. No, you wouldn't have to run it. We would run it for you. It's a real cash cow, this motel, my mom said. A wonderful opportunity. My mom's face fell. I see. I could tell from the look on my mom's face my aunt wasn't going for it. My mom held her hand over the receiver and whispered to us. She says they're saving up to buy an apartment in Beijing for Shin. An apartment for Shin? Shin's only 10. No, of course I understand. But listen, you don't have to put in a lot. You could ask Quinn, Lan, and Bimming. You could ask the whole neighborhood. Everybody could pitch in a little. Quinn, Lan, and Bimming were my mom's other siblings. My mom frowned. Oh, they want to buy an apartment in Beijing too, huh? She said. My mom shifted her weight from one foot to the other. I could tell she was ready to give up, and I poked her. No, Mom. No, my mom looked over at us. Tell her, my dad mouthed. Okay, listen, she sighed into the phone. The truth is, we're really struggling here. Slowly, my mom put aside her Macy's voice and told my aunt the truth. So I'm asking, my mom said at last, her voice shaking, will you help us, sis? There was a long pause on the other end of the line, during which my mom, Hank, and all held our breaths. As my aunt delivered her verdict, my mom sank into the bed. Chapter 63. My mother was inconsolable that night. She couldn't believe that my sister would rather buy a fancy penthouse in Beijing than help her own sibling. As she buried her head into her pillow, my father tried his best to comfort her. I can't believe she said no, my mom said to my dad. I couldn't either. Never in a million years did I think that my aunt would say no, not after my mom told her that what we were going through. I guess a lot has changed since we left. Not just the neighborhood, but the people too. They were probably splitting the bill now. It's okay, my dad said. We tried. You heard what Hank said. It's no skin off our back. It is, my mom cried. It's the skin and the hair and everything. I bit my lip as I listened from my bed. Now we'll just be employees for the rest of our lives, working for one guy after another. Not everyone can lead, Yang, my dad said. Some people are just destined to be followers. As my father started going on about our fate, I threw my head back onto my pillow. I didn't believe we were destined to be followers. I didn't believe we were just supposed to stay on the roller coaster forever. I thought about all the people I'd met this year and how we all deserved better. Lupe, Hank, the other weeklies, and all the immigrants. So many wonderful people from so many different parts of the world. If there was only one way we could join together and break free. Wait a minute. What if we didn't need one rich relative? What if all we needed instead was a lot of poor people? My mom said it herself. Everybody could pitch in a little bit. Lupe came straight over the next day and squealed when I told her my plan. Of course, why didn't we think of this earlier? Mr. Yao desperately wants to sell the motel. We could probably get it for cheap. She grabbed my hand and we ran out ran out of the back to find Hank. It was Saturday, and Hank was outside his room watering his tomato plant. "How much do you think Mr. Yao wants for the motel?" we asked him. Hank stopped watering and drew a sharp breath. "At least $300,000, I'd say. Why? Did you guys find another rich relative?" "No, we were all out of those, but we know a lot of people. Sure, they're all poor, but if everybody put in a little, and it wouldn't be a donation, it would be an investment. We'd own the motel together," I told Hank. I pulled out my notebook and showed him and Lupe my calculations. Their eyes boggled when they saw the math. "This place makes $12,000 a month," Lupe asked. "Holy, that's serious money," Hank exclaimed. $144,000 a year. Serious to be exact. Hank slapped his leg. "That's it, I'm in," he declared. Hank emptied his pocket and every jacket. He dug his fingers into the backs of chairs and checked under the bed for money. He even checked his shoes. He managed to find $78.56, which wasn't a lot, but it was something. The other weeklies, as soon as they heard, wanted to contribute too. Fred put in $100 and Billy Bob put in $200. Mrs. T contributed $250, but Mrs. Q, who put the most in, a whopping $3,000. Hank whistled. "You got $3,000 laying around and you're living in this dump?" he asked her. "Why don't you get an apartment?" "This isn't a dump," Mrs. Q said. "This is home. And besides, if I lived in an apartment, I would have never met all you wonderful people." She gave my shoulder a squeeze. Lupe skipped on home to talk to her parents. She said that they had some sort of emergency fund that she wasn't sure how much was in there. As for me, I dug out my essay from the contest. I made copies of the essay and passed it out to every single customer who came in. My plan was simple. Find 600 people to contribute $500 each. That would bring us to the grand total of $300,000. So far, we've got $3,628 from the weeklies. We still had $296,371 to go. A few customers threw my story in the trash, but a surprising number didn't. They responded with genuine interest and curiosity. A few were moved by what I had told them about our situation and the kind of year we'd been having and how we got through it by pulling together as a family. They opened up their checkbooks and wrote checks, $700, $1,000, $4,000, $5,000, and even $8,000. One customer wanted to know my vision for the Calvista. His name was Mr. Cooper, and he was a venture capitalist from Los Angeles, passing through on his way to downtown San Diego. A venture capitalist, Mr. Cooper said, was someone who invested in small companies before they came to become big companies. Though he could afford to stay anywhere, Mr. Cooper still liked living frugally, and that's why he was at the Calvista. "Where do you see the Calvista in 5 years?" Mr. Cooper asked me. "Right here," I said, a little confused by his question. He laughed. "No, I mean, what kind of things do you expect from the Calvista?" I thought about this and said, "I just want everyone to be happy, every single customer." Mr. Cooper smiled. "That's the kind of vision I like to hear. I'd be honored to invest," he said. Mr. Cooper took out his checkbook and wrote us a check for a jaw-dropping $50,000. As he handed the enormous check, my mother's hand shook. She'd never seen so many zeros all in one place. "I'm expecting big things from this place," Mr. Cooper beamed. "Big things." With Mr. Cooper's check and the other customers' contributions, we still needed about $230,000. So the next day, I went around to all the shops on our street. To my wild surprise, both Mr. Abayan from the convenience store and Mr. Bagwati from the dry cleaners wanted to invest. "Are you sure?" I asked them. "Are you kidding? This is our chance to own a piece of land in America," they said. They were tired of sending all their money back to their relatives month after month. For once, they were going to spend it on themselves. They gave me $1,000 each, cash. I ran all the way home, clutching the thick stack of hundreds in my hands. Lupe came over with even more thrilling news. Her parents talked it over, and they wanted to invest $10,000, the entirety of their emergency fund. I said, "Are you sure about this?" Lupe nodded. "We've never been more sure of anything in our life," she said. As her dad added his chunk to the huge pile of money, Lupe and I grabbed each other's arms and jumped up and down, screaming, "We're getting off the roller coaster! We're getting off the roller coaster!" By the end of the week, we were $85,000 down and $215,000 to go. I took out the big ledger and started writing old customers. I wrote to Mr. Lewis, the guy who gave me a hard time about the key and wanted all those extra pillows. To my surprise, he wrote us back and sent me a check for $100 and and along with a gift certificate to Home Depot for a better key machine. Mr. and Mrs. Miller, the nice couple who gave me an $8 tip, sent $75. They told their friend about it, a guy who made a fortune selling mops on the home shopping channel on TV, and he called us and wanted to invest. My dad then got on the phone and started calling up some of the immigrants who stayed at our motel. When the immigrants heard they wanted to get on the deal too. Aunt Lang, Uncle Lee, Uncle Fing, and Uncle Zhu each invested $100, $125, $150, and $200. Even Uncle Zhang, who had just gotten a new job parking cars at a parking garage, put in $88, which pleased my parents very much because of the number 8. Word got out that there was a killer investment opportunity, and soon immigrants all up and down the state were coming over to invest. If we can't have American dreams ourselves, maybe we can have it together, the immigrants exclaimed. My parents were in awe. They could not get over the fact that so many people, total strangers, could believe in them like that, and how they could look at them and decide, hey, I don't know you, but I believe in you. I believe in your dream. And put crisp green bills into their tired, blistered hands. One stranger after another, flesh and bones, that looked into their eyes and said yes, when time and time again they looked at themselves and said no. 2 weeks later, an even more amazing thing happened. Hank walked in the front office with a stack of bills. He slid the cash across the front desk, a thick stack of 20s. You found more money, I asked. No, you found more money, he said. I furrowed my eyebrows at him. I didn't understand. I got your money back from the essay people, he announced. You what? I couldn't believe my ears. How? I took a page from your book, he said. I wrote them a letter. He reached over and touched the fresh green bills, my lucky penny money. I never thought I'd see it again. When I explained to them how young you are and how hard you worked for that money, they returned it like that. Hank snapped his fingers. Oh, Hank, thank you, I said. He waved away my thanks like it was nothing, even though what he did meant the world to me. So what are you going to do with it, Hank asked. I'll tell you what I'm going to do with it. I said, I'm buying a motel with it. That's my girl, Hank beamed. I wrote the Vermont people to say thank you for returning the money, and that's when I had an idea. Dear Vermont Motel essay organizers, thank you so much for returning my entry fee. Can you do me a huge favor? Can you please kindly help me send the following letter out to all the people who entered the essay contest but didn't win? It would mean a lot to me. Thank you, Mia Tang. Letter attached. Dear Sir or Madam, my name is Mia Tang. I am 10 years old, and like you, I also entered the Vermont Motel Giveaway Essay Contest. For the past year, I have been helping my parents manage a motel in Anaheim, California. We have made it our home, from the towels we carefully fold each day to the customers we call family. But you see, the motel is not ours. It belongs to a man named Mr. Yao, who is unkind and unjust and stubborn as a rock. My parents think that working for Mr. Yao is the only way, but I don't think so. At night, I dreamed of a better way. I dreamed of owning a motel one day that was ours. So I entered the Vermont Motel Giveaway Essay Contest. Sadly, though, I didn't win. I always knew losing was a possibility. What are the chances of actually winning a motel? But still, it hurt, watching my hopes and dreams disappear. You probably know the feeling. Well, maybe all our hopes and dreams don't have to disappear. I'm writing to you because something has happened here at the Cal Vista Motel. Mr. Yao is selling the motel. He's selling it for cheap because he's desperate. We're all chipping in to see if we can buy it from him, and we're looking for investors. If you'd like to invest, please let me know. It wouldn't be a donation. You'd be one of the owners, and in the future, whenever a customer comes to stay at the Cal Vista, part of that money would go to you. You might be asking yourself, why should I invest in a motel from a 10-year-old? For 3 reasons. 1, I know what I'm doing. I know every corner of this motel like the back of my hand because I've lived here and worked here for almost a year. Number 2, I love what I am doing. I'm very proud of my work. Every day I check people in at the front desk. The customers like me, see enclosed feedback cards, because I always go the extra mile for them. Number 3, I won't let you down. I will work very hard every day for my dream and yours. So what do you say? If we can't win a motel together, let's buy one. No investment is too small. Even if you have some extra pennies and nickels lying around, we'll take them. You'd be amazed what some of them are worth. I look forward to hearing from you. Truly yours, Mia Tang, Manager. After a few weeks later, the checks started rolling in. The Vermont Essay people sent my letter out, and to my absolute amazement, people from all over the country sent in checks for $50, $100, $2,000, and even $10,000. By the end of that incredible month, with everyone else's investments, we had reached $300,000. We cashed the checks and at the bank and kept all the cash in a giant trash bag, which my parents held in their arms at all times and slept with it at night in case any robbers came. All right, friends, that's it for tonight. We have one more day of reading and then we will be done with our book. All right, I will see you next time.